Hi everyone, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. If you're watching it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the show, make sure to subscribe so that you get notified when a new show is released. And if you'd like to find links to videos or MP3 files, just go to miamighostchronicles.com, and you can also submit any eerie experiences you've had at the Submit Your Story tab. Also, hook up with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where you can find information not only about new shows, but also about monthly free merchandise giveaways. So get comfortable, enjoy this new episode, and just imagine it's a dark and stormy night where not a creature is stirring, not even a mouse. And if a creature is stirring, you hope it's a mouse. Hi everybody, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural, and the following is an interview that I just finished doing with Mack Maloney. I've had interviewed Mack myself on my show, and I believe the title of the episode, if you want to look it up, is E.T. Enigma, and I'll have a link to it in the credits of the show, as well as information about Mack's show. It's called Mack Maloney's Military X-Files, and it's hosted by him, Mack Maloney, Juan, and Commander Cobra. And in case you didn't know, Mack Maloney, he's a best-selling author and has a series of books, best-selling author on Amazon. And the show usually emphasizes U.S. Military involvement in the paranormal. Topics can range from famous military encounters with UFOs to the Pentagon, psychic studies, remote viewing, for example, haunted forts, airplanes, ships, and battlefields. So, Mack was kind enough to invite me to speak to him about the paranormal, and we bantered back and forth. It was a short show, but extremely interesting information that he gives out. As a matter of fact, his show airs every Friday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, and that's on kcorradio.com. Again, I'm going to put a link to the show in the credits, but let me go ahead and let you listen to that interview, which, by the way, was great fun.
Also on the line with us, Switchblade Steve Ward, up there in the Bowl of Flakes.
Great to be here with everybody.
Battle Creek, Michigan. He already confessed earlier in the show that he had a big bowl of frosted flakes for breakfast.
No, that was my favorite.
Keeping the local economy up, is that right there, Switchy?
I do what I can.
Okay, all right. Let's send him like a case of scotch or something, just to loosen up a little bit. Also,
doing what he can.
But, I should say, we shouldn't fool around.
He's a big star now.
We have a guest on. See, that's the thing. It's like I keep seeing, tell him in the back of the limo. Marlene, Pardo, who runs the Miami Ghost Chronicles, is on the phone with us. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, so what's it like down there in Miami right now? Like 80 and clear?
No. You know what, of course, for us down in South Florida, it's freezing. It's going down into the 50s. And we're all dying.
How dare you?
Hey, that's it. And it'll be gone in about 48 hours. But for right now, we're like, oh my God, it's so cold.
Oh, I hate that. If
Is that what it is, 250 down there?
There'd
be people swimming they'd be swimming in the ocean here if it was 50 degrees. Really, people would be at the beach. They would be.
No.
Anyways. Now, are you right in Miami itself?
Yeah, well, I live in Miami itself, but it's a big county. But I live like down in the southwest, very close to the entrance into the Florida Keys.
Oh, nice. Wow. That's an interesting part of the world, right?
Yeah. I've got the Everglades like very close by, and it's like, down towards the end where you go into the Keys.
Right. So do you go down to Key West a lot?
It depends. After a while, you try to time it when there's not a lot of coming and going, because it's one way in, one way out, and if not, you spend a lot of time in traffic. But yeah, every chance I get, we go down there.
But it's like a long series of thin bridges, right, that get up to there?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about, as far as if you ever have any type of accident or anything, you could be in traffic for a bit, but that really doesn't happen that often. They're pretty good about
Right.
it, but it's beautiful. It's very nice.
Right. And is it is it the freak show people say it is? In a good way?
Key West itself, no, I don't see it that way. I mean, if you want to go people watch, absolutely, it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not totally a freak show. I mean, you just have unusual, peculiar people. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do
It
people
also
do?
depends. They have
Yeah.
certain festivals and certain things that
Yes.
That
Right. What are people? Well, there's an Air Force base there, or there's a big military
the
base.
Navy.
Right?
There's a Navy
Yeah,
base.
yeah, Key West, yeah.
Yeah, so that must employ a lot of people. Then there's just like a lot of bars and stuff, right?
You know what they say about sailors, and I was one.
Wait,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like
We
crazy.
had
Have you had any problems with the sailors?
No.
I was
You know
just-
what? No, not really.
Good. They're good neighbors.
What you gonna say? Yes. Think about it. What's the name of the ghost there that Coco? He sent us pieces of the boy, the stuffed dummy who's.
Oh, yeah, right.
You ever hear that?
Robert the doll?
Oh yeah. Oh.
That's the one. Okay.
Creepy story. It's a dummy of a kid with no face, and if you go and see him in the museum,
Comes to life.
if you make fun of him, you're cursed, and they get letters from people who are cursed. And,
You're supposed to
Wow.
ask for permission every time you even want to cross in front of him, supposedly. I've been there. I've been in the museum where I don't know if they have him there right now, because I know he
Yeah.
tours. But
Oh,
yeah.
he told you. Why not? Zeppelin does it. Why not? Robert the Dummy. Wow. So he tours. Someone's making tons of money off of this.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. But you've seen him. You've seen him in the cloth.
Oh yeah.
So-
One time we did. I accompanied a group. They asked me to go there, and we had exclusive access when the museum was closed, which is I think it's a Martello Tower where they had him, or I don't know if they still there part of the time. And he was under a big glass case, and
Yeah.
they were giving us the ground rules. Don't do this. You gotta ask permission. I'm like, what? Are you kidding?
Is he in
me?
a city?
It doesn't have to breathe, though, does it?
No.
I have a picture.
Sorry.
I have a picture right next to it, and it was like, but yeah, some people do take it very seriously.
Is he in a sitting position or is
Yeah,
he
they
laid
have
out?
him like in a little. I want to say, I think it was like a little rocking chair or a little chair.
That's going too far, I think. So and isn't that the idea? Is that if you, as you say, if you don't give him his respect, he can curse you, right? And they have tons of letters from people.
Yeah.
Wow. So he's a ghost with a tune, is what you said, right?
Yeah, he supposedly got. I think the backstory on it was that I want to say a nanny for the original little boy that owned it supposedly put either a curse or a spirit in there, and that's what animates it. But that's kind of in a way it was a cursed doll from the beginning.
Oh, okay. All right. And so, well, how did the dummy get involved in it then?
Well, apparently this was a doll that I'm not sure if she was either Jamaican or Haitian, the nanny for the little boy.
Okay.
And they gave him the doll. I believe it was around the turn of the century. And she invested the doll with a spirit or a curse. But what happened was that as he grew up, he kept the doll, and his wife, even when he got married, would hear him, because he was an artist, would hear him upstairs in the attic talking to somebody. The only other thing in the room was Robert the doll. So yeah.
Amazing.
There's many roads to go with this story, but let's just
There's like a movie out of this or something?
let's stay in our lane.
Was there a movie or something?
No,
based-
no. Has there been a movie? I'm going to say no.
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 The closest
Make
thing
it-
you're going to
make
get
it-
to something like that was the Chucky, but no, not really for Robert the
Chucky.
doll.
Chucky. The first Chucky was really kind of scary. I don't know, like Chucky 44 and lost its luster.
Lost its luster.
So, Marlene, how long have you been in the ghost business, if I can call it that?
I want to say like officially, which is like very like since the 90s that I've been doing investigations. I mean, interest always has been there. And things like that. And but as far as going in there and being asked to participate, and this was before, of course, it became like so mainstream. In other words, was I would say since the late 1990s.
Right. Since the 90s. So what did you start it as a child? Because your picture looks like
Oh, I wish. Oh, what is it? Flattery will get you everywhere. It's wonderful. No. But it's one of those things. Originally, I was working with a research foundation here that just covered the entire state of Florida. So when they had somebody, a case down here, or if they were short manpower, they would ask me to go, and I would do what they did was like a 2-part thing where first you would go in there and find out is scientifically, was there any basis? Are we talking mental illness, drugs? What's going on? Before we would go in there. That's how I really got started, because I was really good at interviewing people and speaking to them and assessing. It's not surprisingly, a lot of these cases really there's nothing supernatural going on. It's more,
What's the percentage? What percentage can you say are not paranormal?
I want to say it's a 60-40 split. And let me explain that 60 yes, 40 no. But of that 60%, okay, I want to say that a good 30%, you do have people with problems. It's just that, in other words, it's you got both things.
Oh, wow, interesting. Yeah, okay. Because we had someone on a few months ago. He was a doctor, but he had done like some kind of duty at a, in a facility for people with mental issues.
Yeah.
Right. Very, very disturbed people. And he swore, and he was a pretty believable guy. I mean, he was a doctor, so he swore that these people had a higher rate of, seeing paranormal things than people who didn't have these issues.
Yeah, I believe it.
Wow,
that's awesome. And because as far as my degree, it's in human behavior and mental health, and after a while, you become really good at. As far as you can diagnose up to a certain point, because that does take a little bit. People that is just truly, truly, truly like, mental illness or disease brain versus people that got that, but there's something else. And I don't know if you remember, Mac, I had mentioned that I'm also a trained hypnotherapist, and I used to work in alternative areas of hypnosis. And one of the areas was in spirit attachments, which was something along those lines of what you're telling me he was describing. And you will have a lot of mental health people that off the record, they will tell you the same thing.
Wow, the only thing that I remember we compared it to, not that it's just a slight comparison, but like we got into this discussion how people will say they have a pet, a dog or a cat. They'll get up in the middle of the night and start barking at the corner. They see something that we can't see.
I've experienced that.
Okay.
Sure.
It's kind of like the same thing. It's like these people, for whatever reason, how like I hate to use the word of like idiot savants who can do, figure out pi to the 1000th degree or something in their head. They can do that. That's real. That happens. And maybe some of these people, can see things we can't see. How strange would that be? But there's a lot of evidence that kind of points to that, right?
Well, you get in my experience, based on my observation, a lot of people that have some type of a little bit of anxiety, or that are kind of like, these people that are very vigilant, because of just either their nature or just things that happen to them, they pick up on stuff nobody else does in the real world, and then some.
Wow.
Those are the people that I've seen that just pick up and see things, and usually they have that background.
Describe this person a little more fully, if you don't mind.
No, and this is really, this applies across the board. I mean, the different degree of difference between one and the other, but usually I've seen they're what I call hypervigilant. Okay. Some of it could be their nature. Some people are born more high-strung than others. A lot of it has to do sometimes with childhood. If things were a little bit unsettled, where as a kid you're stuck, so you're always watching what's going on around you. In other words,
sure,
you become more vigilant. They develop a little bit of anxiety because you're unsure. And after a while, they kind of incorporate, because, as humans, we're pretty malleable. And you become second nature. And not only are you watching what's going on around you and picking up all these cues, body language, etc.
Right.
I've noticed there's a higher incidence of people with these characteristics that are, for lack of a better word, either psychic, or they just see things. They see apparitions. They see... they just see things, and like I said, a good portion of the ones I've seen, there's a correlation between that type of personality.
Wow, that's crazy, because so what we're saying in a way, and I hope I got this right, I really do, that if you are someone who doesn't have this hyper-vigilant. Is that the right word?
Hypervigilance, yeah.
And the anxiety that goes along with it. In other words, if you're just these kind of people that I see them, I envy them, but they just kind of go with the flow. You know what I mean? People, they don't worry
Their
about
mind
stuff.
must not be clouded by other worldly things that.
They're malleable.
Cloud everybody else.
It's kind of like, okay, you go along the flow, which kind of leads to that thing that maybe it is like a matrix thing. If you pay a little bit more attention to it than the normal person, you start to see things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's somebody that's just, how you're always picking up on body cues. You do it unconsciously. We all do it, but this is the person that will take it to the nth degree because they're trying to anticipate what's going to happen or what the person's going to do.
Marlene, can we be trained to be that aware and perceptive and that perhaps relaxed to be more cognizant of strange things around us?
Believe it or not, it's the opposite of being relaxed. A lot of these people that I've worked with, that's the thing, they never turn off. You know how if you think one of those saws, to cut wood, usually when we go to sleep, we turn it off. They never turn off.
Wow.
Okay, so those are the people that sometimes they have trouble sleeping, or if they sleep, their sleep is like very light. They hear all the noises in the house, even when they're sleeping. So it's a mixed blessing in the sense that they're very good, like I said, at picking up on things that other people just don't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's exhausting, which is also what causes a little bit of the anxiety because
it takes a lot of energy to be on watch 24 hours a day. Even when you're asleep, you're on watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's why. And so that kind of, we should just remind everyone that we're talking to Marlene Pardo down there in sunny 50-degree Florida.
Yes.
You can believe it. Down near the Keys, and she runs Miami Ghost Chronicles, knows a lot about ghosts. We love talking about ghosts. So is that something that happens from childhood, you think, or there's no way it's in the genes or DNA or anything?
No, you know what? I hear a lot, and I'm sure you've heard it too, like, that it runs in the family. Not really. Let me tell you something. Maybe it's because in your family it was more accepted, where everybody talked about it, or your mom and your aunt and your grandmother, but not really. I don't really think it's something genetic per se. I think it has to do with, like I said, your emotional makeup, what happened to you when you were a kid, because that's really where it starts. That sets you up to be that observant.
Right.
And that can happen to anybody. I mean, it has nothing to do really. You can have this ability and none of your family be, like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, right, sure, right. Hey, Switch, you must have a question, do you?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird question, but, we talk about residual hauntings and conscious hauntings.
Yes.
I wonder if do you think it's ever possible, whatever it is that triggers a residual haunting, is it ever possible that those sometimes become conscious and act as if it is that the person has survived? I'm thinking of things like, the Philip experiment that they did in Toronto, where they created an imaginary ghost that was responsive.
Yes, like a tulpa, yeah.
Like a tulpa. I mean, do you think that ever, if it does happen, that it would react as if, here that person has actually moved on, their soul or essence to wherever, but still you're getting this interactive, like it is something very conscious. Do you think that's possible, or that ever happens?
As far as residual, I think that, in other words, the flow would be intelligent, leaves, residual is left behind. Once it's residual, it's going to never regress. In other words, residual is like an imprint in the fabric of that place, whether it's the smell of coffee, something that was done a lot. Certain, you hear sounds on steps going up and down. That was done repetitively, but there's nothing there. There's nobody there. Maybe at one point you might have had an active, or what they call intelligent haunting, and maybe for some reason that spirit moved on, but that imprint is still there.
We should explain to people who might not know that a residual haunting is, as you just said, it's almost like you're looking at a videotape from hundreds of years ago. Yeah. It just happened to be there. But then there's, what do you call the other haunting, where you actually see a ghost, you interact with the ghost?
It's an intelligent haunting.
Okay, all right. There's two. Now, just go into this, in people throw around the space fabric of space-time and stuff like that, and I'm sure physicists, understand it and stuff, but couldn't it just be kind of like a glitch in the system. You know what I mean? Describe coincidences as just kind of like glitches in the program, glitches in the software or something, you know, that all of a sudden...
Or random acts of synchronicity.
Yeah, that you're not supposed to know, but you know so definitely, you know, and you know, let me ask you this question, does everybody have the same amount of ESP, and can you, if not, can you train yourself to have like a higher amount of ESP? Maybe you don't even know, but do you know?
Yes.
I have a feeling you know.
Yes, I do believe that something, and I know a lot of people say brain plasticity, which is, you know, what, let's say this is, let's say some people, let's say, that have had a brain injury or something, that you can retrain your brain can be trained to use different neural pathways. And then you do that when you do something repetitively. After a while, you do a second nature, for example, like driving. Okay. I think that being psychic or being able, you know, let's say remote viewing, whatever the case, however you want to look at it. Yes, I think that you can train yourself. But
do you think?
I'm sorry.
Do you think people are born with it? You know, do you think some people are born with it more than others are?
I don't. How can I say this? I think we're all even. It's just that it's almost like some people. They don't have to work at it that hard, but it's there, and it's some people just never use it because they may be a very mellow personality, and everything is good for them, and they really, you know, they don't need to be that observant, but you still have those people that they've never had any type of psychic experience, and they'll go to this one place and be there at the right time, and they'll see something or have an experience and never again, or they'll see a crisis apparition. Same thing.
Do you think you have to be in a way in the right place at the right time? Because I've never seen a UFO. I'm always looking for them, and I feel like
you'd think you'd be the one to be chosen to see one.
Yeah, I know, but I have this feeling I'll never see one because I'm like hypervigilant looking for them. You know, they just seem to surprise you. And ghosts are the same way too. I mean, you go into a haunted house and all that. That's crazy, okay? But if you go to a place and you have one of these intelligent hauntings, I think it's usually a surprise to you. You know, it isn't like you're looking for a ghost, right? If you look for a ghost, will you see one?
Let me tell you something. There's a good chance. That's why I say that, you know, a lot of these shows is like absolutely. I think sometimes it has to do with timing, especially if it's something tied into an anniversary. There's something, you know, that needs to be happening for that apparition or whatever supernatural event to take place. So I know the weather. Sometimes people will say is tied into that.
Really? That's odd.
Yes.
Yeah, really overcast, rainy weather like we have.
Electrostatic charge I've had also where it's not necessarily that it's stormy weather, but if the weather for some reason mimics what it was like when that haunting took place or that personality had an experience.
Yeah.
Maybe early in the morning, maybe at dusk. I mean, it's like the variable could go a lot of ways. I would say in like a lot of these historical places, you know, the docents and the tour guides, those are the ones that really have the best chance of witnessing stuff sometimes.
It's the Matrix. It's the Matrix.
Matrix, yeah.
It's bumps in the Matrix,
yeah.
You know? I mean, that's what it kind of sounds like in a way, you know? But so do you think that, and then we're going to throw the switch here, as they say in the business.
Let's get Neo on the line.
Who?
Neo.
Who's Neo?
Matrix dude, right?
Yeah.
The one.
Yeah, Jack Reeves' character.
I never saw the movie.
The one.
But anyway, other show. Train of thought there, one. Train of thought.
Well, we were talking about the Matrix.
Oh, right. Okay.
The glitch in the system.
I mean, doesn't everything kind of point to that in a way? And you know, we're just seeing.
I think certain life experiences may repeat each other, but with different characters.
This whole thing about, you know, the people who aren't, you know, on duty the whole time, you know, miss stuff. So if you're watching for weird stuff, you will see weird stuff. That's what we're saying, right, Marlene?
Right. Well, I mean, it's, you know, sometimes you'll have people that everybody will see it. Sometimes things happen and, hey, everybody sees it. You know, the psychic ones. Usually, like I said, timing. Yeah. Let's say if you're a trained psychic or you've had that, those are the people that will walk into the place and they'll say, oh, well, you know, there's a soldier standing over there in the corner and he's like, he's missing a hand. And everybody's like, huh? And most of the time that person has been having psychic experiences or seeing that for a while. Every once in a while you'll get like somebody what I call a nail. These are people that are very down to the earth, you know, they're nailed down, who walk in and they'll see it, but the other person is more than likely a lot more to see or get an impression. Or they'll go into a place and they'll go, man, this place feels negative or bad, or I want to get out of here. And they got a person standing next to them going, what are you talking about?
Weird. See, I don't think that's never happened to me. Nothing like that. The only ghost thing, and I'm going to ask...
No ghosts on Plum Island that you've seen?
That we know of, anyway. So...
I want to know what kind of ghosts you're going to see around Miami. You know, like dead surfers or something, or what?
Old coke dealers who, you know, at their end or something.
All you have to do is drive out to the Everglades, believe me. I'm sure there's a ton of bodies out there never been recovered.
Yeah. It's standing room only on the Everglades. Switch. You got another question there? No?
Yeah, there's, you know, Emily and I, Emily, the other correspondent on the show, Emily Minnemeyer, we go out often to the area where the Mothman was seen, and there was this, the infamous TNT area where it was originally seen. And people have a lot of other experiences out there. A lot of people will see orbs and so forth, but they'll also see, for lack of a better term, shadow people. And in my research, I've even found that some people that have experienced UFO sightings have seen shadow people.
Very creepy.
Yes, in your estimation, I mean, there may not be one answer, and this really hit big for a while. How would you describe? What are your ideas about what shadow people may be?
We should tell people that shadow people, and they have these a lot in the St. Louis Valley in Colorado. That we have Tim O'Brien on, Tim, whatever his name is, a lot. Christopher O'Brien a lot.
Chris O'Brien, right?
You're in your house and you see the shadow of people on the wall and stuff, but there's no one there. Yeah. Okay, is that a good description of it there, Marlene?
Yeah, well, people, I mean, you have people that'll say shadow people, either they catch them darting like out of the corner of their eyes. A lot of people will actually see them like usually really tall. Some of them will throw in their hat man where the shadow person has like a hat or a hood.
Yeah.
So you got some different versions of shadow people.
What's going on there?
Okay, well, the consensus is I want to say that a very low percentage from what I've spoken to different people that have had experiences is like an actual human ghost, which is just trying to get out of your way. These are the ones that you see like out of the corner of your eye, like, did I see something?
But they're able to cast a shadow?
But that's the weird...
It's almost like they see the outline, but instead of actually seeing, let's say, a ghost, almost the only thing they can materialize is like their shadow, like an outline.
Yeah. So that's what they mean. Okay.
No. That's what I'm saying. That's the minor. I want to say the majority of them are what I consider non-human entities.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people say it was a very dreadful feeling that came with it. It was very menacing, etc., etc. Some people even say, like when you were talking about earlier about Mothman, some people will say, oh, they're, you know, if you sight one, it's a harbinger of death. That's just a version, you know, of what some people think of as the shadow people.
Which would have been dead 20 years ago. He's hanging around down there all the time. You still with us here, Switchy?
I'm here. Okay,
stop eating those frosted flakes, as it turns out. Okay, good. We're talking to Marlene Pardo, Miami Ghost Chronicles. We could go on all night because I just have tons of questions about ghosts and, you know, I mean, let me just ask one. We got about 3 minutes left. If you have an intelligent ghost encounter, okay, is that ghost coming to see you? You know what I mean? Should you take it personally?
Depends. It might. I've had cases where the person is the one being haunted, not the house. And then when you talk to them, you find out that every place they live, they have the same thing. And it's like, have you caught on yet that it's not the house, it's you?
You know, it's funny. Just that you said that, I'll tell us real quick. We had a guy on a few years ago. He wrote a book about a very haunted house in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Okay, it's kind of a famous story. Happened in the early 60s. Furniture flying all over the place and, you know, cupboards slamming and stuff. And they called the fire department and the cops. And the cops and the firemen actually saw this shit. This stuff happening. You know, and overturning big couches and stuff like that, you know, just like really nutty stuff. And they had like ghost hunters.
Lots of things in motion.
And lots of witnesses, which is strange. And then like about 4 minutes or 5 minutes before the interview was over, he says, "Oh no, by the way," and about all the crazy stuff in the house, he goes, "Bob Crane, the actor, used to rent this house." Holy cow! You couldn't get more cursed than that guy.
Really? Wow.
Anyway, so Marlene, just explain the Miami Ghost Chronicles for our audience, please.
Okay, well, Miami Ghost Chronicles, it's the group that I founded back in the 90s, and really I've always been a freelance investigator, which means I work with a foundation out of Florida, but also with different groups around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of consulting because sometimes people will call me or they'll call me in because I'm reliable and I know how to keep confidential stuff. Then now after I've started writing a couple of books a couple of years ago, but I've been, like I said, working with I want to say mostly residential clients that, despite what everybody sees, always wants to keep it very, private, for lack of a better word. And that's usually your marker that these people are really scared. That they're
Are you like a shrink to them? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, sometimes, and I don't want to be. I have a lot of they want the hand holding, and it's I can't stay here.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to take. We help, but and sometimes again, Mac, there's a lot of dynamics. Sometimes, not all the time, going on in some of these investigations that it's like, you know what, I could probably help you get rid of whatever's here, but you're still gonna have to deal with yourself. That
Right,
kind of scenario.
Yeah. So are you able to kind of reason with ghosts, if I can put it that way?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you can.
Okay. All right. Is there any chance that ghosts know?
Reason with them in what way? Don't punch me or don't kill me. Or...
Don't scare me. Don't harm
Well,
me.
some of them, believe it or not, are not really sure that they're dead.
Oh, that could be a problem.
So they're still hanging around because
They're confused. They're confused.
They're confused. Is there any way can they see the future? Can they see like the score of the Super Bowl in February? Is
Let me
that
tell
possible?
you, a lot. You hear of a lot of people that have had these encounters. In my experience,
Yes.
whenever you get a supposed ghost that's foretelling, trying to tell you, hey, this is going to happen, and it turns out more than chances you're talking to a non-human entity, which is not a human ghost, and you're in trouble then because
That's not like a thumbs down on the Super Bowl score.
And, that's how they entice you. They give you all this information. You're like, wow, and then
Nothing.
bites you in the butt.
So you're talking to a demon or something?
Okay,
What are you
I am very careful about the demon word because there's a lot of entities out there that are non-human, have never been human, but are not necessarily a demon. Demons are one of them, but there's a lot of non-human spirits besides demons out there.
And what are they doing? Just causing trouble? That type of thing? They kind of bug you?
Some of them, it's like some of them people bring it on themselves. You have something like elemental spirits, which usually they ignore humans, and your best bet is to ignore them. Usually you'll have a lot of people, let's say cultures that at one point knew about them and just like appease them and leave them alone. You never want to get their attention. You never want, because you're in trouble if you do.
It's like the waiter at the grog. You give him your order and he disappears. Here we go. Never to be seen again. He's the only ghost I've ever seen. Marlene, thanks for joining us. Like I said, we could go on for hours and hours. We should
We gotta go down to Miami and check out the work.
That'll be our road trip on the way to
road trip.
For what she said about Mothman, I think we could pass up the Mothman Festival and just.
It goes up and down the strip in Miami along the coast road or something.
Last time I heard, I think Mothman was in Chicago, something like that. So I don't know.
Oh, all right. Well,
That gets around.
Well, listen. Thanks. What do you have coming up in the next few months? You see clients, right? Do you hypnotize people?
I don't anymore privately. I have done it with some clients because, but it's a very rare occasion. Usually I'm writing my books. As a matter of fact, I've got a new one coming out the 18th, which is called Supernatural Safety. It's like a paranormal DIY guide.
Oh, cool.
Or, hey, everybody else is DIY. You can do paranormal work DIY, and I'll tell you when not to, when it's not a DIY project.
Oh, cool. Well, get in touch with us when that comes out. When's it coming out?
December 18th.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, we should have you
Keith
on.
Richards' birthday.
Yeah, there you go. That's how Juan remembers everything. So, well, thank you for joining us. And I'm going to, right now, this is the end of the show, Juan. We've had so much fun.
Oh, man.
It's
You
just
can't
flown
extend
by.
it another hour?
No. As much as I wish you could, call the starboard galley and tell them, get
Okay.
our seats ready,
All
please,
right.
and keep the grill on and
Okay.
put the Jack
Can
Daniels
you
on
close
ice.
up shop on your own?
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Flee. Call and flee. Thank
Marlene,
you.
it's a pleasure to
No,
Thanks,
it
talk to
was
you.
my pleasure. Thank
Yes,
you.
it was
And
nice.
happy holidays, happy New Year
Yes,
to all,
thank you.
everybody.
Yeah, I might be calling you for personal consultation. You never
Not
know.
a problem. Whatever you want.
Thank you, Marlene. Thanks for
care.
joining.
Bye-bye.
Marlene Ghost Chronicles. What's your website? What's your website?
It's
real quick?
MiamiGhostChronicles.com or MarlenePardo.com.
All right, cool. All right. Thank you very much, Marlene. We'll talk real soon, okay?
Bye-bye. Take care.
All right, good night.
Wow. And one had literally went.
Like that interview? Okay. So that was Mack Maloney, and I've interviewed Mack myself on my show. Okay, is in the title of the episode is E.T. Enigma. And by the way, Mack is he's a great author. He writes a lot of. He's a very good selling author of Wingman series, Chopper Ops, I believe. I mean, he's got a series of super famous bestsellers, but he also has this radio show that he does do. Juan, I believe, is his co-host. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a third person there, or that maybe he switches them out. But anyway, it's fascinating because one of the things that me and Mack had spoken about was UFOs, and we had mentioned, not all the time, but where some people that have had UFO sightings, there's a correlation between them having paranormal experiences of some type, whether it's ESP or sometimes even ghost sightings. You'll have other people that even have cryptid sightings. It's almost, sometimes it's a standalone experience, but other times it's like a one thing comes with the other. I mean, I've gone to meetings here in Miami out of a group that they're ufologists, and I think I've mentioned this before. After everybody stands talking around, and be surprised what people talk about when there's a smaller group. I mean, usually we'll be looking, and maybe it's a MUFON presentation, and there's a lot of people, and we're looking, and sometimes afterwards everybody breaks down into chit chats, and you're surprised some of the things that come out, that people will say their experiences have been like. I've had these sightings of, let's say, a UFO. Some of them have just had sightings. Others have had abduction experiences, and some of them have said, along with either sightings and or abductions by extraterrestrials, I've had paranormal experiences, or I'm more sensitive, or it's almost like, it's not like, okay, I saw the UFO and this stopped, or it's almost like a flow in their lives that you can never forget. Like it opens a door. And some people will say, well, what does ghosts have to do with UFOs or ETs? Or, like one thing is one thing and the other's the other. But a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people see a correlation with people having experiences in both areas. Okay. What he was mentioning, are we talking, because we're talking interdimensional aspects? Are we talking, do ETs or UFOs travel between dimensions, and maybe the same way as ghosts do, or the same way as cryptids do? And it's just, maybe it's almost like, let's say it's the same doorway, but it leads to different rooms, and maybe when that doorway opens, something slips in and out, even though they don't belong in that same dimension, but it's the same portal into ours. This is just a thought. I think part of it also is what I was describing to Mack originally. I think that when you develop this vigilance or this awareness, you just overlook stuff before, but now you pick up on stuff. You're more aware of things. It's almost like, once that door is open, it's open. And you just, I want to say, besides your senses, you develop an, how can I say this? Everybody thinks of extrasensory perception as ESP, as in mental, but I think that there's another thing that goes with this. There's a sense of intuition, if you want to call it that. And by this, I don't mean, some people, let's say when you're psychic, whether you're clairvoyant, for example, and you know what's going to happen, or maybe what happened before, or whatever. I think there's something that happens to people that their intuition flowers. And maybe it's, by the way, again, I'm going to state, this is not something that you acquire. It's almost like it's been there all along. That's why I use that example as it flowers. All of a sudden, it's been there all along, it flowers, and you start picking up and getting information that feeds into your brain, maybe through your subconscious mind. It's expressed through symbols. It's a lot of things. Everybody's different. Everybody processes stuff differently. You're going to get people if they've been doing it for a really long time, for example, like when you were a kid, guess what? You learn to listen to it, and it's like, just like talking, you know, hey, I gather all my information, and maybe I don't understand how much I'm gathering it from where. Okay? And then you get people who, once this starts developing for them, then they're like, man, what's going on? I mean, I'm having weird dreams. I'm going to places and I feel like either a good feeling or a bad feeling, or I meet somebody, or I shake their hand, or I'm around somebody, or I have certain feelings about, man, I shouldn't go down this road, and they kind of do battle with themselves, like, oh, it's just my imagination, that's crazy. Whereas the person that's been using it since they were a kid, they deal with it. They're good with it. They understand it. And as a matter of fact, they might not even be aware of how much information they sweep in, not only through the regular senses, but with that intuition part of themselves. Which, by the way, and I've spoken about this in other shows, that intuition, which a lot of times is information or data that we pick up through our eyes, our ears, it goes into us. People poo-poo it. Like when something, let's say they go someplace and they get a very uneasy feeling and they really can't account for it. And they refuse to act on it because they don't see any immediate threat, danger, any reason. A lot of people, things happen to them because they refuse to pay attention to it. And there's some people that have been victim of robberies, rapes, a lot of stuff, even attempted murder, who will say, you know what, when I arrived at this place, and by the way, what I'm talking here is, I'm not talking that you ahead of time know you're going someplace that's risky. It's like, of course you expect something might happen. I'm talking about things that happen to people when they least expect it. They were either someplace there was supposedly no threat, maybe someplace they've been to before, or with people that they've never had a problem with. And a lot of them, the ones, of course, that have survived, whatever happened, will said, I had a weird feeling, I had a bad feeling, I thought I should leave and I didn't. Or, I felt somebody was following me and I checked out, but I couldn't. And later on, of course, unfortunately, they have horrific experiences. And a lot of the times, part of this, like I said, is what you hear and what you see, that sometimes our brain captures it, but we just don't capture it with our conscious mind. That's why we can't figure out, well, why am I feeling like this? But there's also another part of us that it's, I want to say, for lack of a better example, almost like when you walk into a room where two people have been having a heated argument. When you walk in, it's quiet, but you can feel the tension. Even if you're not looking at these people giving each other dirty looks, as an example, because people can say, oh, you're picking up on the body language that these people just had this big giant argument. Even if that's not the case, you feel it in the air, and it's the same thing. As far as our intuition. Now, one thing that's very important, which I mentioned to Mack, is the problem sometimes where you develop this vigilance, what he was talking about, is it the ability to turn it off. Because if you don't turn it off, you go crazy. Your brain doesn't do, and I'm gonna use a personal experience. You know, when my kids, especially my sons, they were going through their teenage years. You know, I would always give them curfew at midnight when they were, you know, in high school and etc. And I always told them, you know, you need to, if you're gonna run late, you need to call me, you need to tell me, or whatever. But I'll tell you what, and even as they grew a little bit older, until they left home and whatever, a lot of times I couldn't sleep because, like, it was like, okay, once they're home, you know, if I would hear the car pull in, it's like I can fall asleep. But even the times when they were a little bit older that they might come back later, I'm telling you, even if I kind of dozed, I could hear every single noise, everything that was going on in my house. And if you looked at me, I looked like I was asleep, and I really wasn't asleep. I know I had like a radar going on where every sound, everything that was going on, I knew what was going on in my house. And like I said, once my kid got in, that was it. It's over. But now, can you imagine being like that all the time? Not because your teenager hasn't come home yet for the night, but because you're just doing that all the time. That's where the problem comes in, with that vigilance, where you never go into REM sleep, you never drop down, your mind becomes foggy because you might say, well, I'm sleeping, but you're not really sleeping. You're not really sleeping. And that's the problem when your mind is like that. Okay, if you sleep, you can wake up really easy. The quality of the sleep that you get is not good. We do not function well if we do not drop down into REM sleep. REM sleep is when, of course, rapid eye movement, you know, when you see people's eyes move under their eyelids. And sometimes, if you remember, you'll have some funky dreams because what it is that your brain, your subconscious, is speaking to you in symbols. And that's why sometimes, if you remember them, you'll have some really weird dreams, like animals and people you've never seen, and you'll be like, what? And it's just, all it is symbology. And sometimes it's what they say, as easy as what you desire, what you fear. But what people don't understand is when you go into your REM and you have those dreams, basically you're clearing out your brain. You're taking everything that's happened to you during the day, whatever, good, bad, in between. You kind of file it off. And it also depends on what's happening in your life. You kind of also process things maybe you're worried about. Or in some cases, there comes a point, and I tell everybody, I've spoken about this, where sometimes we have events that are very, very hurtful, very traumatic, and we'll bury them because at that point your brain might say, you know what, this is not a good time for you to remember this. And then later on, when you're ready, it'll start feeding it to you in your dreams. And that's why you'll have some people that have, and I'm not saying all the time, sometimes people that have been victims of something in their past will start having very weird dreams or even flashes of remembering stuff. And that's what it is. It's that the mind, your brain, your however you want to call it, is saying now you can handle it. Doesn't mean you're going to be comfortable with it, but you're not going to go insane. You're not going to lose it because, and as like I said, you'll. But anyway, but besides that, REM is really important. And when you don't have that REM sleep, that level, that's not good for you. So when he was asking me, well, can you train yourself? It's like, do you really want to train yourself to do that? That you can have plasticity? Absolutely, you can have plasticity in your brain and train yourself for certain things. And usually after X amount of time, if you do something long enough, it becomes second nature. And a lot of people, they don't do that. They give up. You know how they say you have to do something for 21 days for it to become a habit? Well, it's, sometimes people give up too easily or too quickly on things. And I mean, I remember when I started to drive, it's like you think about everything. Oh my God. You think, well, what do I do? And that was an automatic. I remember one time this is when the Honda Accords were coming out, and they only had 5 speeds. I didn't know how to drive clutch. And I was in my 20s, just one of those things. And I got the car. I had to drive it home. That was the longest drive just to get that thing out of first. And I remember I used to live in an area where it was a development, and mostly it was unbuilt. So I had all these streets, how they lay down the streets and developments first before they built. And I practiced there because I had to go to work the next day. I turned in my other car. One of those crazy things you do when you're in your 20s. And I was like, I gotta. And my thing was, of course, if you don't know how to come out of first, either pop the clutch and you, either the car turns off or you're afraid because you don't understand that once you have the clutch in, doesn't matter if you press on the accelerator, the car's not going anywhere. But in your mind, it's really hard to do it. Bottom line, I don't know if anybody out there has had that experience. And then after a while, guess what? I love 5-speed, especially in small cars. And I could drive 5-speed. Okay, I could, just bring down. I didn't even have to brake. I could slow down the car, just bringing it down in speeds from 5th down and doing turns. And I wasn't thinking about it. I could just go. And at the beginning, I'm telling you, I was sweating bullets. And my point is that the brain's plasticity works along the same lines. Sometimes, though, we give up too easily because we feel uncomfortable and I don't know how to do this. And unless sometimes somebody holds our feet to the fire, like what happened to me, that was like, this is the only car I got. I better learn how to drive it because I want to say my job was like 15, 20 miles away. So I had to learn how to drive it. And not to ram into somebody or stall out in traffic. Yeah, and it was maybe that first week, it was a really long week. I dreaded it. It was like, oh my God, oh my God. And remember, going to it from work, it was in rush hour. So it was a lot of traffic. And eventually I got beyond it. And I want to say that with anything having to do with, if you want to develop your psychic senses, remote viewing, anything of that nature, yes, you can train your brain without developing the hypervigilance. But it takes a while, and I think a lot of people give up too easily, not only on that, on other things, because it's like, I did that 3 times, I guess I'm not good at it. It's like, what do you mean? Oh, you did it 3 times? Nobody's good at anything. After you do it 3 times, you got to go through and work out the kinks, and that's one of the great things about human beings, man, our brains. We can do that. We can mold our brains till we become second nature, or we don't have to overthink it. Every little thing, how to do it, what to say, whatever the case might be. But anyway, guys, I hope that you liked this little interview that I did with Mack Maloney on his show. I'll put the link. He's on K-Core Radio, and I'll put a link to his podcast. So if anybody wants to listen to him, he talks a lot about the UFO paramilitary angle, I believe, but every once in a while he'll throw in something like me, like ghosts, into the mix. And again, he's a best-selling author. You go to Amazon, you go to his website, and you're going to see he's got lots. He's got series of books. That's how good he is, and he's a very, very nice guy. So again, guys, thank you for spending this time with me. Don't forget to go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, storiesofthesupernatural.info, or MarlenePardo.com. At MiamiGhostChronicles.com, I have all the links, whether it's to YouTube or to the podcast, where you could download the MP3 files. If you're a true believer and you want to submit a story, go to the Submit Your Story tab. I'm always happy to see stories coming in, which I'm going to do a show of doing a little collection. And I'm going to read them off, some of my good stories. And again, probably by the time you listen to the show, the book will be out, which is Supernatural Safety, a Paranormal DIY Guide. And I got Reverend Sean Whittington, who's the host of Vegas Supernatural, to do the forward for me. He's a great host for his show, Vegas Supernatural. But anyway, guys, I hope you pick up the book. Probably I want to do some giveaways on it in the future once it gets rolling along. But anyway, by the time you hear this, the holidays will be over, but who cares? Happy holidays, Happy New Year. I wish for you and your family or your loved ones the very best. Only good things for you. And thank you so much for being part of my audience. Take care.